I will never tell people to stop drinking coffee because I myself also need coffee to function.
Mm-hmm.
So there are tricks. If you do want to go out and drink and you want to consume bladder irritants, let's share with you some tricks so that you can do so without being worried about your urgency or peeing your pants.
Welcome to Pelvic POV with your hosts and doctors of physical therapy, Amanda Neary and Hannah Meyer. What's up, pelvic freaks? Welcome back to another episode of Pelvic POV.
We're your freaks for us and we're freaks for your pelvis, baby.
That was so loud. I loved it.
I wanted to experiment with different ways and vocals.
I like it.
Thank you.
Expression. Did you buy that sweater when you were in Savannah?
Of course.
It's really cute.
I know, right?
I wish I saw that when I was there.
It isn't so cute. It was on sale and it's like an XXXL.
I love that.
So cozy.
Cute.
Here it is, guys. You like it?
So Hannah and I have established that we pretty much do everything together at this point, and that involves me taking my first pole class with her this weekend.
Yeah. If you guys don't know, my optimal, I say optimal all the time. I feel like it makes me sound smarter. Smarter? More intelligent. Makes me sound more intelligent.
I was like, smarter's a word, yes.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Is that what you're asking?
No, I knew that was a word, obviously. But if you don't know, I do pole dancing for fitness and for just to connect with my body and do like more and just feel more sensual. I love sensual flow classes. And Amanda's been wanting to take a class and she's finally taking a class this weekend. Mm-hmm. Her friend Steph is teaching the class.
Yes.
Where are you taking it at?
Shout out to Steph at Pole Icons.
Oh, at Pole Icons? Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it on time to the class yet, but I'm going to try my best to make it.
Yeah, we'll be there. Me and my other friend are going to take it too.
Yeah,
so it'll be fun.
It's going to be so fun.
Hannah was teaching me.
You're going to fall in love.
Oh, I know. I already knew this, and that's why I've put it off for so long, because I have so many creative outlets right now that I'm like,
you have too many hobbies.
How do I fit this in between like the voice lessons and the podcast?
I'm the same way.
So I know I'm going to like pole, and I used to dance. So when you were like teaching me how to twerk at Lollapalooza, I was like, yeah, I'm going to love pole. This is going to be so fun.
It's so fun, guys. If you haven't taken a pole dancing class, whether it's even for like, if you want to take a birthday party or a bachelorette party class, they do parties. There's a few studios in Chicago that I love. There's Fly Club, Pole Icons, Brass Ring, Velvet and Chrome, Catalyst Movement Arts. Check them out. If you want any recommendations, take a pole dancing class. It will change your freaking life.
You know, there's research now that like shaking your ass really like releases the muscles in the pelvic floor and can help release trauma from the hips that's like stored in that area. So I'm all for this.
Yes.
Amazing.
It's literally like research based, guys. Shake your ass.
Wake up, shake your ass.
If you're waking up and you're feeling down, just start shaking ass. Mm-hmm. See where it brings you. Now I'm kind of sweating thinking about ass shaking.
Oh,
I'm getting hot.
she's getting hot and bothered. They're not shaking her ass over here. All right. This week, we were inspired in a bad way by the lines for the bathrooms at Lollapalooza a couple weeks ago. We were inspired to talk about peeing when you're out with friends, especially in the presence of bladder urgency symptoms or any incontinence issues that people have faced. These lines were insane in a way that we just had to hold it for so much longer than we normally would have. And we've all been there. We've all had a couple drinks and needed to go to the bathroom. And there are just some situations where that's not a possibility right then and there, unfortunately. This also happened to me in LA when I was visiting in July last month. And we were at a wine festival. If my LA friends are listening, what up? We were at a festival and there were literally 6 bathroom stalls available for 1,000 people that attended this. And we were in this line for 25 to 30 minutes every single time we had to go to the bathroom. And we actually left earlier than we normally would have because we were like, okay, we cannot go to the bathroom here. What if I keep drinking and I have to pee urgently? I am not going to be able to hold it at this bathroom.
That is the biggest fear, especially if you struggle with.
Yes. Like suffer is not wrong, but it's a little aggressive.
Oh my God, that was funny. Especially if you struggle with urgency already, it's an anxiety thing. Like you already struggle with urinary urgency and you're like, oh my God, I'm going out tonight with my friends and I'm going to the club. There's going to be lines and I'm not going to be able to hold it.
And we talked about how that can affect your ability to actually like breathe diaphragmatically and release those pelvic floor muscles that are going to be super tense.
So we're here to help you.
We're
how to
talk
pee,
about
how to prep for a night out.
Absolutely. How to prep for a night out and what to do on a night out if you're in that situation. Because, like, it'll happen from time to time. Not everyone is a music festival girly, but...
Music festivals it gets pretty bad. We ended up finding a secret bathroom spot in Lollapalooza and we're not sharing. I saw the lines.
Gatekeeping.
We're gatekeeping, sorry. But yeah, I saw the lines in the bathroom and I was like, oh my God, there has to be something better. So I went hunting.
You went hunting.
And I found a secret spot.
She calls me. She's like, I ended up... She was like across the festival.
Yeah, don't tell them. Be careful.
Here. Okay, so true. It was like an idyllic little like den.
It was like there's no line at all. It was like, iconic.
But yeah, that is bound to happen at one event or another. Everyone goes to events at some point, whether it's a music festival, a wine tasting, no matter what you like to do, there's going to be a situation where there's a line for the bathroom, especially if you're going into the women's
bathroom.
Yep. That line gets out of control. And so we want to talk about what to do in cases and just alcohol in general and how that can affect the bladder and your urgency. So a good place to start, I guess, would be why does alcohol or going out in general, like what beverages are impacting your urgency? Why are we feeling this more on nights out? What's going on physiologically there?
Yeah. So to start off, let's talk about bladder irritants because alcohol is a bladder irritant. Other bladder irritants include coffee, soda,
anything carbonated
beverages. So if you're drinking like an espresso martini, oh baby, double time in that bladder irritant. And I love espresso martinis. Don't get me wrong. We should get one after this.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, perfect. Love that.
Okay.
We just made plans to do more things together.
We just made some bladder irritant plans.
No, that was a good point. So those are the bladder irritants we'll talk to people about. Usually at evaluations or just when we're discussing what people drink, just to get a baseline for them.
I will never tell people to stop drinking coffee because I myself also need coffee to function. So there are tricks. If you do want to go out and drink and you want to consume bladder irritants, let's share with you some tricks so that you can do so without being worried about your urgency or peeing your pants.
Yeah. But why are these things bladder irritants, right? So I think one of the things that goes on physiologically is they can alter the pH of the urine. So more acidic urine is going to irritate the lining of the bladder. And when the lining of your bladder is irritated, the mechanism in which your brain registers that it's time to go to the bathroom is from a stimulus from the bladder when it fills to a certain extent. When you have an irritated bladder lining, that can create that stimulus as well. So that's going to trigger your micturition, which is another word for urination, that process and that response, which is usually involuntary. And then we have that sphincteric control in our pelvic floors that actually allows us to pass urine or prohibits us from passing urine, and we can control that voluntarily. That bladder irritant is going to make that process kick in, and all of those substances we just listed are bladder irritants that can trigger that.
I describe this for patients. I describe it like this. Have you guys ever had heartburn? I always ask them like they're going to answer.
Yes, I have had heartburn.
Well, I haven't, but I've heard that this is what it's like. I don't think I've had heartburn. I swear to God. So imagine heartburn. So imagine that in your bladder and you're consuming all these bladder irritants. Like you're going out for the night. You haven't consumed any like water during the day. And then you're drinking an espresso martini. So that's like vodka or tequila espresso martinis. Have you ever had that?
I have. They're not my preferred, I will say.
I love a tequila espresso martini. It's actually better in my opinion, but Amanda doesn't think so. So choose your favorite and then go with
Choose your favorite, and if it's not me, I'll cry.
But anyways, imagine that like alcohol, caffeine, bladder irritants, and then you're drinking like a whiskey Coke, more bladder irritants. So then your bladder is getting like, it's like, I imagine it like in the Sahara Desert, like, get this out of me. And it's like wanting to contract more because it's like, get this crap out of me. I'm burning in here. So it's like, it's going to send you that urgency more to get that liquid out versus, so it's more of acidic pH because your bladder does not like acidity. So it's like burning the inner lining of your bladder.
That's
And
a good
then
analogy.
if you include a little bit more water, it can help neutralize the environment in your bladder
Yes.
to make it more willing to fill and expand.
So when we get into tips for a night out or going out in general, hydrating during the day beforehand is a big one. I've been in this position too, where I'm like, I don't want to have to pee later, so I'm not going to drink anything. And then I go out and I'm only drinking alcohol. And I notice that those are the nights that I have like the worst bladder, like urgency and control. Whereas if I was hydrating regularly throughout the day, that's going to prep your body to neutralize that pH a little bit more. And your bladder is going to be non-irritated before going out. And so you want to be sipping water throughout the day beforehand. And that's why that would make sense.
Exactly. Or also like maybe if you go to the bar and if you specifically are struggling with urgency or you're worried about it, drinking like a glass of water before your drink, or like sipping your water, taking a sip of your alcoholic beverage of choice, or like taking a drink of water and then drinking your alcohol and then taking another drink of water.
Yeah.
Ways that you can balance the pH in your bladder. Some people try to take out water altogether because they're like, the more water I drink, the more I pee. And that goes back to when we've talked before about chugging versus sipping throughout the day. But it actually will help the pH in your bladder.
And if you're someone who's not picky on what they mix their liquor with, instead of mixing it with a soda, you can mix it with a flat water and throw in like little citrus, which actually I think is also a bladder irritant.
Yeah, like lemon could be like a bladder irritant, but could be bad. You could play around and see what your body responds well to in terms of like bladder irritants, because everyone's a little bit different. Like some people really struggle with like tomatoes.
On that note, there's certain alcohols that can impact the bladder more than others, red wine being one of them that's been studied. So if you're willing to drink certain alcohols over another, maybe avoiding alcohols that we know are a little bit worse for the bladder, like a red wine, could be something that you try too. Those are ways to change that habit based on consumption. Prepping the body for the night out, how you're hydrating and drinking on the night out. And then in the case of urgency or feeling like you won't make it to the bathroom for fear of leaking while you're out, we can go over some urge defer techniques, because it's not always going to be the case that you can control that urge. And even if you're seeking treatment, that we hear that all the time, where it's like, I'm afraid to go out with my friends because I'm worried that I'm going to leak or have this symptom of urgency. So Hannah, what are we going to tell those patients?
I was just thinking we need to include that video that we took at Lala when your friend asked me and she was like, Hannah, do you have to pee still? And I was like, no, I'm okay. I deferred the urge.
Yeah. And I literally,
as we were walking by the bathrooms,
she asked her that. And then I was like, say that again, because they said it organically. And I was like, say that again. I'm going to get this on video. And it was good.
But that's going to be you guys soon.
Was nuts. So yeah. So urge defer techniques. We have a few that we use. Do you want to kick us off?
Yes. So number one for urge defer, you get the urge. You're going to stop what you're doing. Okay.
And distract.
Stop and distract. So you can like look on Instagram for a second, scroll through Facebook. Do people do that?
Oh, not Facebook again. That's like twice in a month it's been mentioned.
Did I talk about Facebook before?
We talked about Facebook at All Time Low.
Oh.
Another concert we went to together.
Those bathroom lines weren't bad. So scroll through Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whatever. Count backwards from 100 by 3. Because that can trick your brain a little bit. Just to distract for yourself for a second from like the thought of, oh shit, I gotta pee.
So then we're going to tell people to breathe diaphragmatically, which if you've listened to our other episodes, we go over how to do this. So make sure you go back to those episodes. With diaphragmatic breathing, it is a little confusing at first if you're using diaphragmatic breathing as a voiding technique, because this relaxes the pelvic floor and allows us to actually void without pushing. So sometimes people are like, wait, isn't that how I make myself go to the bathroom? But what it is actually going to do is calm down the physical bodily anxiety that goes on with getting an urge to go to the bathroom. So even though it is a voiding technique, using it as an urge defer technique also works, because you're not going to feel that like pressure and that physical anxiety of needing to rush to the bathroom.
So stop and distract yourself for a second. Diaphragmatic breathing, do like 5 to 10 repetitions. If you got to stop and sit or something, or you want to stop where you are and stand.
I usually actually tell people to sit on a flat surface. The stimulus of a chair underneath you is going to send a signal up to your brain that says like, okay, I don't actually have to go to the bathroom, because when you're sitting on a toilet, that's not a flat surface. So it just having that like flat surface. If you're already seated, you can just stay seated, but if you're getting the urge while standing, sitting down can sometimes help reduce that stimulus as well.
Or even just like putting some like light pressure over the perineum. Like you can like literally take your hand and like put it over the perineum, not like clench up and like hold it.
For those watching the video, she just did a demonstration.
Yeah, you don't want to like clench up. You want to like relax, breathe, and then you can just put some like light pressure because that tactile sensation will like kind of cue your body like, oh, I don't want to empty. I don't want to pee on my hand, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then we've talked about Kegels a few times and how we don't typically prescribe them, but as an urge defer technique, they can be pretty useful. So that's why when we see patients for any bladder related symptoms, we have them learn how to do a Kegel properly because they can be pretty useful in this instance. Doing like 5 to 10 quick fire Kegels can send the same stimulus up to the central nervous system to not have to go to the bathroom. So that's also an urge defer technique that we can give people.
Yep. Just like squeeze,
like
squeeze,
quick.
squeeze, 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 squeeze. To like, I think of it as like a light switch. You're like, have you ever seen that SpongeBob episode when he's like, the guy's flipping the light switch and they're like, what's his name? They say Bulceraptor.
Nosferatu?
They're like Nosferatu. And he's over there like flipping the light switch on and off.
Nosferatu. Yes, absolutely.
Is that what it is, Nosferatu?
Yeah, it is. Wait, can we talk about SpongeBob forever? Okay,
Just brought me back. But I think of it like a light switch and you're like doing like sending some like little like quick flick pelvic floor contractions to be like, don't empty. Because when your pelvic floor contracts, your bladder doesn't want to contract.
Yep.
Okay? Because your bladder is a muscle that contracts to empty. If you're like telling your bladder like, oh, my pelvic floor is on, you don't want to empty right now. That's kind of like the idea behind the urge defer techniques.
Yeah. Those are really, really useful. And a lot of times people think they're arbitrary or just something where like, let's try this and see if it works. It really does work. There's research behind them. I've used them with kids that have bladder issues and they work really, really well. And if you think about like a kid's brain, they're not like consciously like, what am I doing here? Like they're counting back from 100 and they forget that they have to go to the bathroom. And that's really cool. So you know that they're really kicking in and working.
Yeah. And this, you probably do this without even thinking about it. You probably like, you ever had the urge and then you're like, okay, I'm going to go do something else really quick. And you like do another activity. And then by this, it's been like 30 minutes and you're like, oh, I don't have to go to the bathroom anymore, you know?
Yeah.
So if we have like issues and it's like pelvic floor dysfunction wise, or like in the moment where there's a lot of anxiety surrounded by it, you just kind of have to like teach yourself to do that same thing when you're like that you would do when you're in like a low level or like low stress situation.
Absolutely. And then there's instances where people have struggled with leaking on nights out and they are avoiding going out for that reason. And in those instances, while you're seeking treatment for that and retraining those mechanisms and learning how to do those urge defer techniques, you can also just give yourself a safety blanket. Wearing a pad is just something basic that we sometimes recommend in those instances where it's like, okay, let's have a safety blanket because that will also reduce that bodily anxiety. Like if I do leak a little bit, something is there, a protection is in place where I know I'm not going to like feel embarrassed about it, you know?
And the idea is to eventually you will not need that.
Yep. So we've all been there on a night out where we just needed to rush to that bathroom. And I literally left a bar because they didn't have enough bathrooms because I was like, I am drinking wine all day and I know I'm going to have to pee soon.
We've all been there. You got to pee outside sometimes. You're like, there's no other option. I might as well.
Yep. So let's answer some Q&As because we got a few questions about alcohol being a bladder irritant and just going to the bathroom on a night out in general.
Yes.
Let me pull up my first one, which was, since beer has water in it, doesn't it hydrate me? That's a good question. Actually, we wanted to talk about this, so that's good. So alcohol is a diuretic. So this is where that gets a little confusing. So diuretics pull sodium from the kidneys and have it processed into the urine at a higher rate than liquids that are not a diuretic. And that is where alcohol differs from just drinking water. So yes, beverages have some component of water in them, but it having a certain percentage of alcohol is going to make it a diuretic.
Yeah. In terms of hormones and alcohol acts as a diuretic in which it suppresses a hormone called vasopressin. What does vasopressin do?
Vasopressin helps the body regulate water loss. So it helps your body conserve water.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a dysregulation of that hormone, it's going to act as a diuretic where you're going to want to lose more of that water.
Yep. It promotes water loss pretty much.
Yep.
Which is why you want to consume some more water to help balance that out.
Yeah.
In theory.
Nice. So beer is not hydrating you, long story short.
Yes.
I once thought that as well.
Do not use beer as your optimal form of hydration, please.
So it does like quench that thirst sometimes. So I get where the thought comes from because I used to think that too. So from my Instagram poll, multiple people asked me this question, which I didn't even think about. So I'm glad we posted that. Is breaking the seal a real thing? Take it away, Hannah.
Oh my God. It is actually not a real thing.
Yeah. What is a real thing though?
So it's kind of like what we described already. So it does feel, I know I've been there too. I've actually said that before too. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to break the seal because it does feel in the moment. It feels like the first time you go to the bathroom and empty your bladder that you're constantly going back.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, it's just a buildup over time of like the more alcohol you drink, the more often you're gonna have to go to the bathroom because one, you're consuming more of a bladder irritant, so your bladder is getting angrier, and you're suppressing that vasopressin hormone.
Yeah.
So you're losing more water because alcohol is also a diuretic.
Yeah. And it doesn't, and there's cases where maybe you stopped drinking and you still have to go more. And maybe that's why it's such an urban legend that breaking the seal is a real thing. But if you think about like when you had that first drink and how long you waited to break the seal, quote unquote, it could be hours later, but you've been suppressing that hormone that whole time. So that diuretic effect is still building up in your system, even if you were to stop drinking before you had to go to the bathroom that first time. All right. If you guys have more questions for us, this will not be the only episode that we talk about peeing in. We have some plans for some.
Get excited. We're going to talk about more peeing and pooping. Plenty.
We got big plans for peeing on this pod.
Mm-hmm. We will do full Q&A episodes. Mm-hmm. If you'd like to be anon, we will make it anon. If you want us to shout you out, we'll shout you out.
You'll be anonymous unless you say otherwise.
Yeah, you'll be anon unless you're like, I want you to say my name.
Yeah, that's how it's going to be on this pod.
That's how it will be. I am personally an oversharer, so I will let you guys know.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you can visit the links in our social media bios to submit your questions or stories for us. We would love to hear them. We'll post some occasional polls on Instagram, so make sure you're following us on social media at Pelvic POV.
And be sure to follow our personal accounts at Hannah Meyer, Meyerr,
and Amanda Neary, PT, N is in November.
N is in neutral pH for that bladder.
Oh, baby.
Yeah.
N is in not right now, bladder. There's a 40-minute line.
Oh, I got one. N is in, now let's go get an espresso martini.
Oh, hell yeah. That was the one.
I just licked my finger and then high-fived you. Sorry.
Great. All right. Bye, Pelvic Freak.
Bye.